Are there any acknowledgements this morning? There being none, we'll move on to the declarations of conflict of interest. Any council members have a declaration of conflict of interest this morning? I'll just note, even in the Mayor's absence, that the Mayor would have a conflict of interest with agenda item 10.3, Clandine Proprietary Limited. The council has at all times tried to has ensured that that process has remained transparent, with that conflict being acknowledged. Councillors, will move on to the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting held on December 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Second to Councillor Bland. Councillor Coleman. Councillor Arthur is at the back door. If somebody could let him in. We'll note that Councillor Arthur entered the chamber at 10:05.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'll put the motion for the confirmation of minutes. All in favour? And I'll say that's carried unanimously. There is no adjourned business. Reports by members. There is myself as the acting mayor in the agenda. Any questions regarding reports?
Just getting to it.
While we're doing that, I'll just go to Councillor Coleman to ask if he'd wish to give a brief report on the CLLM meeting that was held here last week.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I was going to do a written report with my meetings attended in the next ordinary meeting, but I'll probably do that. But I'll also just on Wednesday last week, there was various committee groups here, the Lower Murray Mouth Organisation and the Coorong Assessment Advisory Panel and other, what I would say, people from various government departments. And it was mainly focused on the Southern Lagoon and of the Coorong. And it was a pretty well attended workshop, probably 30 people here or more, went for about 4 hours. And it was good to see there's various organisations. The Murray-Darling Authority has one monitoring station, and the Lower Lakes Murray Mouth Association has several sites of monitoring points. And main things that come up were salinity, fertilisation, stuff like that coming in, and the flow rate, and of course the salinity of the Southern Lagoon. And I suppose the interesting point is that everybody seems to be aware of it's in dire straits, and whilst we're doing all the investigations to see what's happening, we've got to come to the reality, unless something happens, we're going to lose it. And some of the options on the table are eye-watering expenditure, circulation, redirectional circulation, and a pump out, which means putting pumps in at Ramparker Point and down near the southern end of the Southern Lagoon into the Southern Ocean, and connecting north and south, and then the connector from the Lake Albert to the North Lagoon. The ones that would go into the Southern Ocean would have infrastructure of like a jetty projecting out into the water, and we're talking $200 million plus. It was quite interesting, and that's about where it was at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bland.
So, I guess I'm wanting to know whether I haven't heard anything that was not on the table even before we spent a fortune with a round of consultation, science, etc., a couple of years ago, and that sat on the table. That was discussed recently, Arva, because there was no action for it. That report just seemed to stop, and we'd spent a lot of money on consultation. Right? By we, I mean federal government, looking at this system. It appears that we're talking about the same things for the connector, pumps to the ocean, etc. It doesn't seem to be anything new. My question really is, what's happening next. Is there more money to do this? And are they serious about doing it? Because that report has sat on the table for at least 3 years.
Mm.
And the question was asked, Victor Harbour, recently about where is the report? Now, and the then Senator Cadell was going to take it further at the time. So, wondering where we're at.
Might go to Miles.
If you're comfortable, Councillor Coleman, with the answer, but just to help, my impression was that over the last 12 months in particular, work had been done in terms of a deeper engineering costing analysis of those options, and effectively coming down then to, I think, coming down to 2 or 3 options. And it is now moving into the next stage, which is the final decision and capital work. So they have advanced over the last 12. And it sounded to me like they are at a stage where I would have thought they're probably maybe 2 years away from actually doing a major project. And it would be one of the most significant environmental engineering projects that this state's ever seen. And the $200 million, I think, will increase significantly, I would have thought. And the other thing, of course, what they have been studying is what is the effect of any of these solutions, not just on the lake, but also on some of their studies were quite in-depth. They had a DEW engineer go through some of their wave studies, and really quite impressive the depth of studies they'd undertaken to be able to get down to, a couple of projects. What I would think would be beneficial is we ask DEW to come and present to council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I would appreciate that. I think it's time this council area had a briefing, and perhaps it could be a community session, just so that everybody is informed. Community contributed to multiple sessions, and then it just no information. So it's good to hear it's back on the books, that we're actually starting to see something come out of it. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Just further comment, also as members are aware, we have a annual general meeting and ordinary general meeting coming up with the Murray-Darling Association Region 6, and I would obviously bring some report to them, trying to get the Murray-Darling Association involved to come on board. More the merrier, I would think, about this issue. Thank you.
Any further questions around the reports?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment? I've been to, I think, 6 community consultations, tours, proposed outlets, proposed things over the last 3 years on this. And I think the last 15 months is just nothing. It's as if it's like a lot of these things, it's fallen off the map. It's no longer. It was very, very important probably 3 years ago. They were pushing, and the main thing then is, as Councillor Coleman said, is access to the sea. There's a southern lagoon being accessed through the sea, so it can come in, flow in and out, pump wise. One of the biggest things they had then was how they were going to power it, because there's no power over that way of any significance. So they were talking, I think there was, when you're talking the dollars, I think it was about $50 million just for the power to run the thing. So, it's one of these things that will we ever see a result on it? Because you've got too many people that are, some are pushing it, some don't like it. It's like anything to do with, I think, the river and lakes and everything like that. You've got some who want change, some who want it as it is, and some that don't care. So it'll be interesting to see how this really goes there.
Thank you. There being nothing further on reports, we'll move on. There are no petitions. There are no deputations. And as far as I can tell, there are also no public question time. No questions from the public, sorry. We'll move into decision reports, 10.1, which is the Murray-Darling Association Region 6 AGM representative appointment. Are there any questions for administration before we get into this decision report? There being none, Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move option 2 that we nominate the interim CEO Miles Summers to the Murray-Darling Executive Committee.
Is there a second of that motion? Councillor Qualman. Thank you. Councillor Roundtree, you have the floor.
Yes, I just out of the 2 options, I just think it's more sensible to have the CEO actually on the committee. I don't think we need to actually put him up as region chair unless he particularly wanted to be that position, but I think we've got enough on our plate at the moment. But certainly have eyes in the committee would be useful.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going on to what Councillor Roundtree said. Previously, Coorong Council provided the services of our CEO in the executive position. So, I would like to see our interim CEO continue with that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. To the acting interim CEO, you accept?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll just check that before we go ahead. Any speakers, any further speakers to the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to decision report number 2, South Australian Public Health Council nomination of representative. Any questions before we proceed? Councillor Roundtree.
Yes, I have a question. So how does a 3-year appointment work with a possible changeover elected members at the election in October this year?
I'll hand to the interim CEO.
So I would expect that appointment, if that elected member doesn't become an elected member in the next term, that it would need to be replaced by the sitting member.
So we just go through the process again?
It would.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Bland.
I have a question in relation to nominating a staff member for this role.
I did ask that question last week if any staff members were interested, and I believe, unless it's changed, the answer was no.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm the only qualified environmental health officer, and I think I've got enough on my plate.
I'd agree. That's why I was asking, was there anyone back?
Yeah.
It's a good learning role though for the future, and it's probably not necessarily what they're looking for, but from our end of it, with short numbers all the time, we will always be in this boat to some degree.
And through the chair, I mean, I'd be happy for the rural city of Murray Bridge to nominate either elected member or a staff member, and they've got a good contingent of environmental health officers.
So our liaison there, sorry to cut you off, but our liaison there is quite strong in terms of our issues, then I would have no problem.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor? Councillor Roundtree.
Yes, happy to move option 2. I want to go back.
Yes.
Yeah, option 2 that we just receive and note the report, please.
For a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bland. Councillor Roundtree, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Bland. Any further speakers for or against? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Decision report number 3, Clandine Proprietary Limited. As noted earlier, the Mayor does have a conflict of interest with regards to this motion, and the wording in the recommendation at number 2 is quite specific that it's the acting Mayor would execute and complete the documentation on Council's behalf, not the Mayor. And that's noting that that's why the wording is that way. Any questions around this item?
That's all very clear.
Is there a motion on the floor? Councillor Bland, you're moving?
Yes.
Seconder? I'll take Councillor Roundtree. Councillor Bland.
No, I think we've had lots of discussion on this. It's been something that started a long time ago and now coming to fruition. Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree.
Nothing further to add.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor O'Hara.
I'll vote against this because I just think putting it out to the tender before we just sell it to one group of people.
Thank you, noting that. Any other speakers to the motion? put the motion. All those in favour? Voting for the motion is councillor Roundtree, Coleman, Bland and Arthur. Those against? Voting against the motion is councillor O'Hara. The motion is carried 4-1. Moving on to decision report number 4, Kenalpin Swimming Pool opening hours review. This is following the trial work that was done over the last few months. Are there any questions for administration at this point?
No questions, it's a statement to thank everyone for actually doing this. I think it was interesting, and it's having it at arm's length. This kind of a process has probably helped the group to understand that this is the correct way to go. So I think it was a good process to go through, and it gave us some good clear data to make a decision on.
Thank you. The mover for this agenda item?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Thank you, councillor Roundtree moving. As the recommendation?
Yes, as a recommendation.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you, councillor O'Hara. Councillor Roundtree, you have the call.
Yeah, I'll just say there was two groups in the committee that were wanting it to be different times, and so I think it was a really sensible thing to do to just get the statistics and work purely off of the data, because the data showed us that the morning starting earlier was going to be what more people would turn up for than starting it later and running later. So it's only got another month or so to run, or no, a couple of months, isn't it? A couple of months to run. And hopefully the numbers continue to get bigger and bigger. I know there's now school's back. I think we'll probably see a lot more mums coming in the morning, because that will be their free time, and that will work well with what they do with their farms and other businesses. So yeah, thank you for your efforts.
You, councillor O'Hara.
You know,
Any further speakers for or against? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to decision report number 5, which is the CEO selection panel terms of reference. Noting that council has had a workshop around this last week, a conversation around this last week. Is there any further questions for administration? Is there council that wishes to turn the recommendation into a motion?
Happy to
Councillor
do that.
Bland?
Happy to do that.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Coleman? Councillor Bland, you have the call.
And I think she said we've had a workshop. I think we're all fully informed. We just need to move forward.
You, councillor Coleman?
No, I've got nothing to say, thank you.
Any further speakers for or against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to decision report number 6, the Coorong Community Health Advancement and Advisory Committee. Might suspend meeting procedures for 5 minutes to have a discussion around this before we move into the motion. Suspending meeting procedures at 10:23.
Mr Mayor, and I'd just like to make some comments. I read right through this, and great idea. But what's it going to achieve? All it's going to do is take up staff's time, put out a lovely brochure or whatever, a report. It's going to be ignored. You know, do we think that they're the only area that's got this problem? You know, Mount Gambier, the biggest city in the state, has got more problems than we got with the health side. Narracourt is in all sorts of trouble. Millicent, Robe is just apparently losing their doctor, so they're going to have no one. And we're going to try and say, well, this is what we want. You know, how much is, can you just put a figure on it of how much this will cost us? Because you've got staff working on it, you've got people coming here to meetings. But I cannot see where you're going to gain anything at all out of this committee, except a report and a recommendation.
I'll provide a short answer around a meeting that the interim CEO and I had this week with number of local government contributors from across the country, and this is certainly an area that local government is stepping into more and more. There are some quite good success stories that have come out of actions similar to this, either involved the local government stepping into the health space themselves or auspicing a community group to take a leading role in providing health services. I'll hand to the interim CEO for further comment.
But once again, I ask the question, it is not local government's role to provide health services. It is the state and federal government.
I would
Everything that we want to take over and do, state or the federal government, is going to cost the ratepayer money.
I would disagree with that assertion, Councillor, that this is a role that local government can and does step into when services aren't provided. And it's a conversation that has to be had with the ratepayer when that occurs. There are many councils, as we had a conversation with last week, that are actively assisting in this space. And for some of them, it does cost their ratepayers more. For some, it doesn't. And we're not going to know unless we do the work. Miles?
No, through the chair. And look, I'd take myself back to probably 25 years ago, working for Worrell Range when they had issues with Penola, attracting GP to Penola. And Penola is quite similar to, say, Meningie, whereby the local GP supports the hospital. There's a relationship between the local GP and the hospital. So there was the same sort of threats to Penola 25 years ago as there are currently to Meningie. And also Beachport, similar scenario to Tintinara and to Meningie, whereby there was a doctor at Beachport who was looking to retire, hanging in there, providing services, but there was a threat then that he may need to move on, and the nearest GPs were Millicent. So council did form a committee and did accept that there was local government primarily in infrastructure, and that's what we do see commonly. It may be that it's a house, it may be that it's a rent-free building for a clinic, it may be a car. In the case of Penola, it was a group that came together under auspices of council that became an incorporated body that was able to enter into contracts, was able to recruit GPs. GPs came from overseas, and Penola was able to maintain services. So it's very much, to me, it's a bit like Groundhog Day. I'm back again, issues are the same. And the meeting that we had with the National Rural Health Alliance, the meeting's led by a lady called Susie Teagan, who was the same person I worked with in Penola. Susie is a powerhouse and very dedicated. And the point she was making strongly was that councils do step into this space because they want to save services for their communities. But also she was saying it's really important to challenge the federal governments and ensure then that political lobbying is done so that there is help provided to local government. And effectively, that's what I see with this committee, is that we're starting on that journey and we're enabling this committee to explore and provide advice to council. And we're also, one of the first things I would think we would do is have someone like Susie Teagan talk to the committee about the realities of communities throughout Australia and get some advice and help develop that roadmap. I personally think it's the right thing to do because I've been there before, and also because I think then council is getting clear advice and support from the community.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can just add a bit. I think the meeting we had at Meningie was packed out with people. There was 200 outside on the lawn, and that shows that the community from Tintinara to Tailem Bend wants something done by the council. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? We're going to leave it to the state government. They're going to give us what they want to give us, and it might not be what our community wants. So I think it's very important that we have a say in what we do. And we've got some terrific people here, you know, that know about health and that. So we should be using those.
I'll just extend the suspension for a further 5 minutes. Councillor Bland?
Look, I think probably acting CEO and Councillor Hara reiterated some of what I would like to say. But I think it's really important that if we don't take some leadership in this role, there is no one else who's going to do it to us. And if we just go onto the sides of the pure economics of it, what happens when everybody leaves town and goes to an area where they want to retire? And it won't be Meningie, it won't be Tintinara, it won't be Canalpin, and it won't be Tailem Bend, because there are no services left or very minimal. So when you're aging or bringing up a family, which then affects working people, it affects your shops, it affects absolutely everything. It's all circular. So health is core to all of our communities. And I accept that Councillor Arthur has said, yes, everywhere in Australia has a similar problem, or will have a similar problem if we don't chase the models up that can work. Who else is going to lead our communities if it's not the Coorong Council?
Councillor Roundtree?
Yes, and I think back to Councillor Arthur's first part of the question, querying whether this committee itself, what it will do. He mentioned a glossy report and all of those things. I disagree. This isn't about a glossy report. It's about quantifying the issue. It's about working out some options. And once we have decided for our community what we think as a group is the best outcome for us, we present that and we work out ways to make that happen. No one's going to do that work if we don't do it. So this isn't a report that gets handed to a government body for them to park in their drawer. It is a group that will quantify, come up with solutions, consult the people that are going to be paying for it, whether that's through their rates or whether it's through grant funding. And there's many ways to skin this cat. And it's a gross analogy, but anyway, that's what they say. That is what this group's going to do. It's going to do all that legwork, which isn't going to cost the council a lot of money, because we are, as a group, going to do the bulk of the legwork ourselves. We're committing our time to go and do this legwork, to get this done, so that we can present this as the problem and go, this is what we need to solve. At the moment, we've got different groups doing different things. We're going to bring all that together, quantify it, help solve it, work out how to fund it, and enable this whole region to grow. Because as Councillor Burns said, if we don't have health services here, there goes our schools, there goes our young people, there goes our pubs, there goes our everything, if we can't keep people in this district. And this is one step of a myriad of things that's going to happen to get that show on the road. So I will be supporting it.
Any further comments before we go back into debate? Resume voting procedures?
I just make one other comment, you know, in the part of the thing was a house, you know. Keith has got a house sitting there for a doctor to go into, free of charge. They can't get a doctor. That's been there for a long, long time. They did have a doctor. And this is what we've got to realise. We did have it. Country doesn't count. We've got to realise that. Keith did have a doctor who'd signed a contract and was very happy there. But then the federal government changed, because part of the stipulation, she had to be regional or rural. Then the federal government changed the Tea Tree Gully become a regional area. So what would you do? 24 hours a day there, or go to Tea Tree Gully where you're 9 to 5? And that's the problem. Why can't we get doctors? Mount Gambier is crying out for doctors.
Maybe we should get a committee and work out why. Maybe we should answer those questions.
Because they don't want to go to the country.
Up here.
Sorry.
Councillor Bland?
I hear and acknowledge what Councillor Arthur has said as well, but I do agree that we need to do the work. We also now have a regional body for our area, and we have been promised locums, which I'm led to believe have started at Meningie over the weekend, and hopefully that relationship foster and grow also to some extent. And we will be up to this committee to have a look at that and make sure that we stay on that track. Now, I'm saying that's the very beginning of it, and that's to support the local GP, since one has recently left. We all know that. But at the end of the day, the long-term plan is going to take a lot of time, particularly of councillors. And yes, we will be relying on some staff, but quite honestly, without being totally blunt about it, this not only affects our communities, but our community of staff for this council area either, if we don't do the work. So when people decrease in your community, so does the bucket of which we actually employ to provide services and to look at services. So it is holistic, so we need to be front and centre on this.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm trying to get this answer out, or best I could reply. I think and Councillor Hara made a very good point. When you see community rallying around when we speak about medical issues or medical shortages or medical service, the downturn in our medical services, people are concerned, and as Councillor Arthur said, of course, it costs, everything costs money, and why are they coming here? And maybe we have to come a voice and show leadership, and we, instead of being a voice in the wilderness, start making some waves and start getting some response and putting the heat on the high above. When I sat on the HAC Advisory Council, I did notice, and to my disappointment, extreme disappointment, how many times that some things we wanted to do for our little committee weren't adhered to higher up. It was just like bouncing off a brick wall, and that still grinds away at me. When we can get away with, remove some of that, we'll make some progress. And I think by having a group like this, we'll show some momentum and put more heat above and to create so we can provide doctors, because how can we have strategic growth? Who wants to come here when we haven't got medical services? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Resume meeting procedures at 10:32. Councillors, there's a recommendation here which does involve appointing councillors to the committee. Councillor Roundtree.
Can I suggest that the councillors, and if they're in agreement, I'd like to be on that committee, and I think Councillor Bland, yourself, and as well as the 4 people, unless anyone else particularly wants to, like Councillor Coleman, you may want to as well. And I know Councillor Maidment isn't here to answer for herself, but I know certainly myself and Councillor Bland, and I suggest yourself have got a strong interest in driving this forward, if they're all in agreement. And
Do any of the other councillors in the room wish to be nominated?
Very good, I think.
Councillor Maidment did speak to me earlier today, and she's prepared to be nominated.
okay,
But she said if there was somebody else that was very keen, she'd be happy to be the 4th or not. So,
Yeah, that's right.
so Councillor Roundtree, you moving that way?
yes, please.
Councillor Roundtree is moving the recommendation as written with Councillors Roundtree, Bland, Peach and Maidment to be appointed to the committee. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bland. Councillor Roundtree, you have the floor.
No, I think I've probably said all I need to say about this. I'm looking forward to just getting it started and starting to really get a handle on this, because I want to see some good results and quickly.
Are there any other councillors? Councillor Bland?
I'd just like to say that with the nominations that have been put forward there, that covers the 4 principal towns of councillors who live in the area, from that area. And I think that shows a good spread.
Yeah, good point.
Any other councillors wish to speak for or against the substantive motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I just ask on that, before we go any further?
Oh.
The expressions of interest, how will we go about doing that? The independent community members.
So that will be done as soon as possible. I'll hand it to the interim CEO.
So through the chair, I mean, the same as any other committee, we'll put out an expression of interest in our usual media. And that was, remember at the workshop, we discussed the timing. Kelly has that in hand to move on that this week and start that process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to decision report number 7, which is the cemeteries and burial policy. I'll just note that the governance committee did raise a couple of issues which require further investigation and it won't be in a short time frame. So it's been decided to bring the policy forward without those issues being addressed, but they can be addressed at a future point in time. Are there any questions around the policy? Thank you, councillor Roundtree.
What is the future point in time that this would be addressed?
I would suggest at some point in the next 6 to 9 months, which are probably,
To the chair, correct. There were three issues. So one of them was burial on private property. Another one was being able to have your pets interned with you. And the other one was natural burials. So natural burials are where there is a grave site, the body is not embalmed. And that probably the natural burial one probably is the easiest one, to tell you the truth, because that already exists, the ability to do that. And there are a couple of councils who are doing that. You essentially set aside a section of a suitable cemetery for that. The animals is a little bit problematic. There are issues associated with that, and the private burials and private property is quite problematic. So I'd rather that we take about 6 months to come back with a comprehensive report to the policy working group on that. And then if necessary, what we'd do is come back with a new policy or an amended policy, but we may actually have to, if the pursuit of something like the private property would probably be another policy on its own.
okay, I'll go councillor Bland first.
I understand need to slow down on those three items. I have a question in relation to the natural burial in our cemeteries, and that is finding out the restrictions in relation to groundwater. I'm assuming, given that there are areas around that would have groundwater, whether it be close by, I'll leave that at that. The burials on properties has come up in this council in the past, and we weren't able to get around it for that, and I think it will come again. I don't know how often we've been asked for it, but in my time here, there's definitely been asked in the past. Animals, I'm going to leave alone.
Thank you, councillor Roundtree.
So I went and did some research on burial of human remains on private property from SA Health. They have a whole fact sheet on it. And it just says burial on private property is subject to the permission of the owner of the land and approval of the local council for the area in which the land is situated, and they stipulate a number of rules. I think you follow what SA Health are advising, and you could easily just incorporate something like that. How often we ever get asked for it, who knows, but it does say it's not out of the question, it can happen. It's just got some rules around distances from building structures and water, and obviously there's a process. So I don't think it will be as complicated as what we might think, but this, I'm sure you've seen this. If I found it, you found it.
So before I hand to the director, I'll just comment that one of the reasons we've done this the way we have is to keep these policies back in sync, because this is something that's going to take a bit more work. But Joel.
Chair, yeah, I have read that exact document. I researched there are quite a few councils that are doing it. Seems with standalone policy because it sits outside of cemetery per se.
Okay.
There's probably a bit more detail to it than that document shows. A lot of that references the Act, but there's potentially the need for like land management plans to encapsulate it being a part of that land. Things like it may need to be, or therefore it can be picked up on a certificate of title. So, you know, we want this sort of thing visible when someone does a search prior to purchase of a property from council. So the more we looked into it, it's not about that it can't be done. It's about we've probably got to develop a mechanism which will sit underneath standalone policy that we can do it in confidence, because it's not about the immediate family. It's about when that property then goes and changes hands again, that we've got all the appropriate information that can be shared with the potential purchaser.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, it does say that subsequent owners of the land are not obliged to preserve the plot and may choose to build over it. So I think if you were to undertake that and you knew you were going to sell, you'd have no right to come back and say, look, you've just built your house over my
And I think it also, it talks about quite often, it'll be a condition of sale that the selling family actually has to remove the body,
Yep,
for
that-
example.
yep.
And so the more we read and the more we went, this is all information that would need to be in the policy. All of a sudden you'll end up with a cemeteries and burial policy dominated by one item. And so it's whether it's more relevant, and it seems like a lot of councils are having a standalone policy around private property burials
Okay.
if they choose to allow it. So I felt rather than it get maybe lost in it in something else, it might be better that, if council chooses to allow it, standalone policy might be a better way to go about it. Then we can more clearly illustrate all the requirements around it.
I appreciate
Councillor
it.
Arthur?
I think if we look back 8 or 9 years ago, council went through this process where someone applied for a private burial, and it wasn't our responsibility, it was SAL's. The only thing was it had to be an encumbrance on the title. So we didn't really have anything to do with it, and that we should have the files. And we went through that because it was quite a long, drawn-out process to find out who was responsible, what was responsible, and they were buried out this way towards Wellington East, somewhere out that way. I remember, I think about 8 or 9 years ago, and it probably took about 3.5 months to get all the gear together of being the right permission. I think finding out the biggest thing.
So through the chair, and happy, maybe I could add a session, just circulate an example of a policy from another council. It just has really good clean commentary around it. And then it says, if you wanting to consider this, here's like the 6 or 7 steps that are non-negotiable that you need to undertake. And a lot of it is around registering it with the right mechanisms so that it's captured as part of the property. And, you need to provide council evidence that that's been done, that sort of thing. So I can maybe do that, just circulate an example.
Thank you. If you could, Councillor Bland?
I'm going to move on from that one and talk about scattering of ashes. I'm surprised that if the council requests sensitive consideration be shown to the community, residents and visitors. So anyone at any time can effectively go and spread their ashes on the edge of Lions Park. That's where I want mine. So they can do that at any time with sensitivity.
I think let's just be practical. That's what happens. I mean, I think I've always thought, paddle out on a surfboard, throw it out in the waves.
I'm just making the comment that people I just wonder whether they should be advised of a time frame around it, not doing it when, the height of, for example, where the Lion Park is full of people.
Maybe careful where the wind's blowing.
Yeah, I know it's practical. I just don't always find people that practical or sensible. So sorry to anyone listening.
Right. Now, noting that the discussion we've just had is about items that not necessarily within this policy at the moment, is there a mover for the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Bland is moving. Is there a seconder for the? Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Bland, you have the call.
No, I think we've had, it's all pretty sensible overall.
Councillor O'Hara.
We've had enough discussion.
Thank you. Any further speakers for or against? Councillor Quammen.
Thank you. Just a comment, and I see on the first page here a couple of dot points, which is showing how the trend is changing more to having columbariums, and it says inclusion of the term structure of the columbarium definition and the insertion of approval process for plaques columbarium. So yeah, it's not only just the normal plots, Mr. Mayor, but we seem to have a lot more columbariums happening with them in our local.
That word structure was added to actually reference the existing structure in Tailem Bend, which wasn't actually captured in the policy.
Okay.
An urgent call.
Noting that Councillor Bland is leaving the chamber at 10:49. Absent the mover of the motion, we're going to put the motion. All those in favour? Voting for is Councillor Qualman, Maidment, Roundtree. Councillor Qualman, Roundtree, O'Hara and Arthur, with Councillor Bland out of the chamber. I believe we still have a quorum at this point, so the motion is carried. Moving on to decision report number 8, which is the elected members training and professional development policy review. Noting again that this has been through the governance committee. Are there any questions from this agenda item? Councillor O'Hara.
I'd just like to ask why, I mean, everything I've ever been involved with, companies and governments and that have to accept prior knowledge. I mean, the most boring thing I've had in the last 4 years is training. It's ridiculous. We sit here, we get treated like 3-year-olds. And if I was to go on and get elected again in the next term, I've got to go through it all again. It's ridiculous. And I mean, they sit there and treat you like a grade 3. And yeah, it puts me off of running again.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. Just before I take that further, noting that Councillor Bland returned to the chamber at 10:49. I might go to the governance officer. Is there scope for recognised prior learning in the local government space?
Yeah, we can certainly raise it, and I think it has been raised previously. The framework, I believe, at the moment requires everyone to do the same training, so there's probably not much scope at the moment to recognise prior learning at this stage.
Unfortunately, Councillor O'Hara, I think that might.
Why is the council law different to outside law? I mean, that if I hire someone, they've had recognition of prior learning, then I don't have to do it again. Simple as that. I mean, they can say this is just an update. That's how they'll get around it.
Potentially.
Anyway, I just wanted to make my point.
Well, actually, they're trying to bring in retraining before you get elected, aren't they?
They do that in Victoria now, yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Bland.
Look, I don't disagree with what Councillor O'Hara says. Components of it that could have recognition of prior learning. And then, of course, there's always updates to that. I get that. The other side of that is there's a lot of travelling, a lot of sitting in the room where you could actually be doing this from home. You know, online, there are most places in terms of training these days, and I'm going to use health as an example. For a lot of intense stuff we do online, there are tick boxes and checks and balances to make sure you've actually read it, understood it, answered the questions, probably even stronger than it's in the room, before you actually get signed off. And I just wonder whether having some online training where you can pace it over time instead of sitting, 8 hours in a room, and also connecting in to some of the base training to start and then doing that training. So I think there's other ways around it where we're a reasonable sized council and some people have to travel significantly to be here. So I think we should ask LGA, both through Murray Mallee and direct, around how can we go about doing this better.
Thank you. We might capture that if we could, Ash, and send that through our LGA to start off with. I will note that the LGA did do a review into the training after the last induction. I did take part in that, and I did offer a few criticisms of how it went down, similar to what's been said here. But I haven't heard if they've implemented anything from that review. Okay, the item in front of us is agenda item number 10.8. Any further questions before we deal with it? Councillor Quammen.
May I do a comment, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Quammen.
Thank you. It's a yes and no thing. I think our constituents expect us to have some sort of professionalism about us. That's the word, that'll do. And as Councillor O'Hara is, we've been here before, but some things have been changed and rearranged. I think being a appropriate council is also that every day you learn something. There's always something new. And if it, as Councillor Bland says, it's something to improve you, I think it is a good idea. Actually, I found it interesting when we have a person coming along here, a presenter, and they put up a subject or so, and I always try and find the curly answer or curly question to challenge it. That makes you think, because sometimes the law's not perfect and it could be improved, and that's where we probably liaison with the local government. And in the sense of that, the local government organisation to make things more appropriate. But unfortunately, sometimes, yes, it's a bit of going over again, but at the same time, I do think it does benefit to make us a better elected member. Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree?
Part of what would help get around some of this stuff would be to allow us to do it self-paced learning online, and I see that's in the a document that is an option. I think we really need to push hard for some self-paced learning online that we can do without having to come into chamber and sit all day listening to stuff. So I know they can do it. The landscapes board, that's how they do their training. It's all self-paced online learning, and I did that training, those components with them when I was on their board, and it was actually really good, and it was thorough, and you got to do it. You absorbed a lot. I found I absorbed a lot more information doing it myself at my own pace than I did sitting in a room where I'm easily distracted. And I just think I'd like to see that one pushed and really elevated as an option.
Thank you. Ashley, have you captured all of that? Thank you. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Coleman, seconder? There is a seconder that the policy as it stands be adopted.
May I ask a question? Are we able to put a qualification on it that we go back to LGA and its policies?
Variation to the motion with the movers agreement?
Yeah, I'm just trying to whether we can vary the motion to.
I can see where Councillor Glenn's coming from. If we approve this as it is now, it just goes and parks and nothing really changes for us going forward. There needs to be something written in this motion that says a thing will happen.
So second,
motion.
Mr. Mayor, we've done sessions online before with us coming here and doing it online.
Yeah, so what?
There's no difference. Shouldn't be any difference, and we should be able to do it from home. Then I can slip out and have a coffee for 2 hours and come back.
That's not going to help.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that comment.
Sleep.
Okay, the interim CEO has a call.
So through the chair, could I suggest a second motion,
Thank you. So a second point
second point to this motion?
to the motion that, is there, Councillor Bland, you were the one,
Thank you for putting me on the spot.
welcome.
I think
Strongly advocate to the LGA for online self-paced learning or
Yep,
something
perfect.
like that.
That was perfect.
Great.
actually I quite like what Lisa said. Strongly,
Strongly
in relation
advocate
to
to the
self-paced
LGA.
learning.
Self-paced.
I think in terms of self-paced learning though, in some of the wording around the discussion would be around, given the distances and timeframes that, particularly rural councils, they can adopt whatever they like in the city, but rural council have this, given this opportunity. I'll leave that side of the wording to you, but I'm quite happy with what Lisa said.
Okay, I'll just wait for that to come up on the screen. So council write to the local government association to strongly advocate for self-paced learning or a self-paced learning option for elected members to complete mandatory training.
Does it only need to be mandatory training or mandatory and optional training?
Would you have to come to optional?
Optional training.
May only be offered here, but I'm looking at extending it, saying people may be happy to sit in and then log in at any time, and the ability to log in at any time and complete components of it. I guess in terms of the practicality of it is a young parent who has a child at home may be able to complete 50% of it while whatever's happening in the household, but need to come back at 8 o'clock at night and complete the rest or the next day, or whatever. So given that option to be able to log in and do
Well, the self-paced, I think, would
the
cover that.
self-paced will cover that. But I think from my end of it, I do believe that the more flexible we are in delivering these packages within an overall time frame, the better. I honestly don't necessarily know that when we walk out of here at 8 hours, we've retained 50%.
Not at all.
Councillor Coleman, are you happy for the motion to be varied to that effect?
Well, yep, thanks, Councillor Bland, because that's the sort of point I was trying to make in my comment when I said involved in the local government association, and that's just pretty good.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion moved by Councillor Coleman. Do I have a seconder for the motion as it reads currently? I'll take councillor Arthur. Seconding. Councillor Coleman, you have the call.
I think I've said enough, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Arthur.
I think I was going to make it, making online training available as a bulk, but that's probably a better way, self-paced learning, seeing city. For example, you might be out fighting fires today.
I'm hoping we don't, but
There's someone in the city wouldn't be. But the thing is about it, like we sit there, we go through all this, we don't sit for an exam to see we're competent. We are just seen to be competent through their eyes. But this is a great result, I think, if we can get the LJ to do that. And I cannot see any reason why they shouldn't be able to.
No.
Is it, it's a dime a dozen now. Club Map, if anyone knows of that, but that's a non-for-profit sporting organisations. They have it about every 2 or 3 weeks on a Monday about governance, about finance, about how you run a club, volunteer management, volunteer. It's run by the government, and that has sometimes 300 people on it. And it's a brilliant learning curve for anyone that's in a sporting body, non-for-profit or whatever.
thank you. Any other councillors speaking for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to decision report 10.9, which is the complaints and compliments policy review. Any questions from administration? Is there a move for the recommendation as it reads? Thank you, councillor Roundtree moving. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Roundtree, you have the call.
Nothing more to add, thank you. I'm happy with this one.
Thank you, councillor O'Hara.
No, nothing.
Any other councillors speaking for or against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to decision report 10.10, which is the governance and policy review working group notes of the meeting held. Recommendation is to receive those notes. Do I have a mover? Thank you, councillor Roundtree. For a seconder, councillor Bland. Councillor Roundtree, you have the call.
Nothing more to add?
Councillor Bland. Thank you. Any other councillors for and against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings to an end the decision reports, and we'll now move into minute action. Sorry, where are we? Information report 11, Office of the Chief Executive Officer. Councillors, do you have any questions?
No, sorry, I'm just.
So just a quick question on the budget data. Data was not available for December yet, but January will be included in February. So December and January will be included in February. Is that just because of Christmas holidays and?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll see, we've got a finance committee next month, and
Yeah.
you'll see BR2, which will show you exactly where everything's at.
Thank you.
But just to say everything's tracking well.
Great. Thank you for that.
Any further questions for the CEO? Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Roundtree?
Yep.
Seconder? Councillor Bland? Councillor Roundtree, do you wish to speak?
No, it was a good report. I haven't got anything to add. Photos were cute. I always really appreciate all the photos and the work that goes into these reports. So thank you for that.
You, Councillor Bland?
No, not at this point.
Any other councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Community and Corporate Information Report, which should be 12. And welcome to our acting. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Roundtree.
Is the position infrastructure and project engineer a new position or the renaming of an existing position? If so, which one? I'm confused.
Uh, through the chair, just a renaming, so that's to replace Shark, who won the position as our infrastructure and asset officer. They vacated the project engineer role, retitled it to sort of reflect that it's not solely regarding projects. There's a lot of other means that role delivers, particularly private developments and that, as we have quite a lot coming along in that space. So it was more just to reflect the actual role that position.
So this is the project engineer position, now called infrastructure and project engineer, and responsible to
The manager of capital projects.
manager of capital projects. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Rowntree. Thank you. Further questions?
Just one more, thank you.
Councillor Arthur
Yes,
first, and then councillor Rowntree.
Regarding that project engineer, what are the big projects we've got coming up
I'll go to the director of roads and
that are approved?
Can I ask the context through the chair? Can I ask the context of what you're...
Through the chair. Can I ask the Director of Infrastructure and Assets, what actual projects have we got coming up that are actually approved and ready for construction?
So I'm not, through the chair, I'm trying to understand the relevance. So this role is a pre-existing role, and as I just explained, it's not totally with regards to projects. They're going to be heavily involved with private developments that'll be handing over gifted assets to council. So they'll be handling QA of those developments and roads and swim systems that are going to be built and then handed to council. So that's part of the role there. Part of their role is to support the project team around any engineering support. This person has do plans and the like on CAD. So there's some good in-house resource there. They will also support the infrastructure and asset officer too, with council's asset management. So this role is a support to the whole department underneath the manager of capital projects remit. It's not necessarily purely about delivering projects.
Could I,
You open.
through the chair, I mean, just for clarity, I mean, this position could very well spend half their time supporting other developments and other key strategic activities such as the current Tail and Bend structure plan. Remember in the
Excuse me.
Can I finish? Can I finish?
Detail other developments.
CEO has the call.
Well, if you give me a chance, I will. And this happens on a fairly regular basis. So currently, and at any given time, we've got land division applications before us. So remember in the growth strategy, we said one of the key deliverables would be council able to provide council-related information to developers so that they can prepare their land divisions. For instance, the Stanley Street land division involves us providing advice on the swims capacity, advice and checking on their designs for their stormwater solutions and the like. So this position, along with the planning officers, are critical to support the growth of our towns. Another thing I said before with the current structure plan that's being prepared for Tail and Bend, they are supporting the consultants in providing advice on our current system so that they can help identify what's required to support growth of this town. Another example would be 10th Street. So we've got a project that currently obviously is in place, which is the RPPP 10th Street project, which is to design land division of council land. Again, critically, this position provides support to the engineer consultants that are preparing that document. Well, it will result in the ability to consider selling 5 blocks and making some revenue for our community. So I think the position is extremely valuable, important position for council.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, it just seemed to be getting a lot of project engineers, don't we?
Councillor Roundtree, you had another question?
I just wanted to confirm, do we have 2 or 3 communities, facilities, team members in Carnarvon Tanara? Is it 2 or 3?
Through the chair, we now have 3 again, which the resource commitment that we've always had.
Yep, no, that's great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors have questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. This relates also to Roads and Infrastructure Info Report on page 78, and what I want to look at though in corporate, community and corporate is on page 62, it is WHS. There was a rise in damage in public toilets, particularly in Carnarvon, and also I believe there was a lot that occurred in Tarlin Bend. We got a bit of an update how we dealt with all that, because some feedback I got there was quite substantial damage into our toilets during the holiday period. Thank you.
Through the chair, I guess the response has been reactive. As something gets reported, we go and fix, we go and replace or repair. Nature of the damage could be damage, I guess, considered damage and theft. A lot of toilet paper was being taken. We had toilet roll dispenser destroyed. We had toilet paper being toilet buildings. We had doors damaged at a location. Barring shutting toilets overnight. There's no real solution to stopping it. We could maybe consider signage, I guess, put in inverted commas, signage saying that we may have surveillance in the area, see if that has an impact. Outside of that, the only other thing that you can consider is not a full lockdown, but maybe a semi-lockdown of sites, only leaving 1 cubicle. It's a unisex style cubicle and disabled for use. That way you can limit the damage that occurs. Yeah, it's a frustration. It seems to be only at that time of year. So we're just sort of monitoring what the next period of time nets in that regard to damage to our toilets. It seems to have gone away again. So it's just disappointing. Because it makes hard work to keep the facilities nice for people that are coming through and legitimately using it. So
I don't know that at this point I'm in favour of locking down toilets, living in Meningie itself and watching the throughput of traffic all hours of day and night. Our biggest issue has been comments about running out of toilet paper. I don't think it's all being stolen. But I do understand the problem. I just wouldn't want to make that a carte blanche across the area that we lock them down. And I know we've talked about whether or not one put some sort of surveillance in parks and areas before, and maybe some of that has to be revisited at some point. I'm not sure locking down will answer the question if someone's desperate in a park at midnight. They're going to use whatever space they can find. And I'm sorry, I disapprove of that as well. So I just think we should really think through wherever we go with this. And, you know, I'm sure the reports will come up in the next one about, you know, being able to keep a hygienic spaces effective over significantly busy periods. So it's 2 different issues to some degree, but it all comes together in one. So I guess it needs a bit more work rather than making a carte blanche.
Any further questions?
I'm not sure whether I'm going to jump ahead, but to the traffic counters.
We're still in community.
And the other one, yeah, sorry, I had jumped ahead. Sorry, my apologies.
There are none. Is council prepared to move the recommendation that council receives and notes the report? Thank you, Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Bland. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the final report, which is the Roads and Infrastructure Information Report. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, before I go through you to our director, just the compliments I've received from local residents at East Wellington East regarding the water upgrade. They're quite happy with it. It seems less invasive or, disruptive. They're cleaning up after they've been. And no, I've got some excellent feedback. So through the chair to our director, how far are we with the upgrade to change over to SA Water, please? Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you, councillor Qualman. So the contractor resumed on site last week after their Christmas break. They still had the final 60 or 70 metres of mainline to get across the wetlands and into the compound. Worked with a community member there to have a tree of importance relocated in an effort to try and save it, which was really good. And that member was really happy with the outcome that we reached there. So that was good. They now need to, I haven't been out there since last week. I don't know if they were just remobilising or they actually got some work done, but next steps to get the pipe underneath the wetland and into the compound, and then most of February will be construction of the pressure reducing valve setup. It's quite a substantial setup, so that helps them regulate the pressure to the site. And when I say the site, the whole of Wellington East. And then probably towards the end of February, they'll be looking to do the link-ins to the current existing system, and then through March they'll start the sanitisation process. So that's where we're at. SA Water have been pretty actively communicating their movements. Residents out there, they've got their website. We're going to look to do some updates this week just to keep people well informed. That's about the update that I can provide.
Thank you. That sounds good.
Thank you. Councillor.
Can I just ask about the watering of the Lions Park at Meningie? I asked one of the workers the other day, is it happening? Because there's a lot of dead areas in there. And he informed me that he thought it was getting 40 minutes every night. But I find that a bit hard to believe because there's big patches of dead lawn in there. And speaking to the local plumber who got the job to go and clean out the pickup point, he said it was completely blocked there and he was waiting on a part to fix it. That part.
Through the chair, I might need to take that on notice. So when you say pickup point, you're talking about the foot valve out in the lake? Yeah. Can I take that on notice, and I might just send an email out a session just providing outcome of my queries to them.
I just find it a bit hard. If they haven't got a part to work the pump, how are they watering 40 minutes every night?
Yeah. Can I please follow that up for you and come back to you? Thank you.
I know there's a lot of traffic in that, do they?
That'll be taken on notice and circulated as soon as available. Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Bland?
I do, a few. If you bear with me a second, and I'll just start with the irrigation of the park. I support Councillor O'Hara in that. In fact, I took photos on Sunday in relation to some dry areas that don't look like any irrigation or water's touched it in some time, which means it's probably they need to do a bit of maintenance on the lines as well if they fix this. I note that the watering of the planter boxes in Meningie is being done by hand with a small hose. That worries me a little bit that in the past, and Councillor Harriott tells possibly an 1.5 inch size hose, it used to be on the back of the truck where they could do it with the big tank in no time at all, and then go back and do it a second time so that the whole lot got watered, fill it up and do it twice. This will be taking hours and hours of time to even get enough water into those boxes to water those trees. So while I thank you for making it happen, can we look at the infrastructure that we're using to do it with? I know we had the bigger hoses. So it's just a thing.
Director, could take that on notice and
Yeah, through the chair, I can take that on notice. We don't have a permanent water cart down at Meningie. So, look, let me see how it used to happen and compare that.
Definitely happened a lot more efficiently.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Even if they're running them off the water truck tanks in the back there, not sure if that's ours or someone else's. Looks like it's ours, and we've got a hose there going through. I know they can be fitted. So tree trimming, glad to see that that's been happening. In relation to putting counters on the road, I note by the report that we're putting counters out at 7 Mile as well. I'm disappointed to see them going on after the community has had a significant Christmas period. And I think we've discussed this before about putting them on at times where you'll pick up more of a peak load than not. If not, you're going to have to triple it at least to counteract for the tourism and stuff that happens on that road. So it's great to have them out there, appreciate it. But if we're about to put them on at the end of the Christmas period, which impact a bit. I'll let someone else have a go for a moment. And of course the cockies are back, so regular. Great.
Any further questions?
I probably do, but I'll follow them up individually around that. But it's good to see some of the stuff happening around there. I think perhaps a little more conversation about a little bit of history would probably ease some of the problems if staff don't know, and obviously staff don't know something.
Through the chair, that relates to my idea of getting out with Joel and coming to your towns and having a session with the elected members in your town.
Thank you, I appreciate. I'm sure I'm sure all councillors appreciate that.
Councillor Coleman, did you have another question? Is there a mover for the recommendation that council receives and notes the report? Thank you. Councillor Roundtree moved, seconder. Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. There are no questions with notice. Do councillors have any questions without notice? Councillor O'Hara.
I've got one, and councillor Band just touched on it. The Corellas, what are we going to do about them? They're terrible at Meningie. Thousands of them.
Well, I mean, I'll kick it off, and if Joel has anything to add, I mean, essentially it'll be the same as every year. We'll work within our capacity. You know, I haven't heard anything, you know, from any other external bodies to give us any indication there's any particular action that they're taking. So unless, Joel, you have something to add?
Director.
Through the chair, a couple of us from the R&I team went and met with, well, it was a bit of a group working session with PIRSA, with a couple other councils, I guess to more broadly inform everyone. So we had a Corella specialist come and talk to the birds and the nature, you know, their tendencies, their characteristics, why they do what they do, with the view that there are a number of councils, we're not the only one, there are a number of councils that have them as a problem. And, you know, there's always a want to try and deal with the problem, as we tend to and want to. What this forum was aiming to do was, I guess, gather the information and then off the back end of it, have somewhat of a Corella response type plan. And I say that title a little bit loosely because, you know, when you sit there and you listen to the Corella specialist, there's very little we can do. While there's sources of food, whilst there's water nearby at a lake, a river, we have a major grain facility down the road here. There's going to be very little we can do to move them on.
Are we using the gas guns at the moment?
I can confirm we're using, well, certainly are here. I don't know, have you heard them go off down at Meningie?
We did initially, I haven't heard them just recently,
Yeah.
but I think, can I just explain one thing for Meningie as I understand it, is that we have two sacrificial basic areas and they were being moved from one to the other. Now they have done that and they've effectively, other than this weekend, stayed away from the area where people are living now. However, they've now congregated, I'm going to get shot on my right here any minute now. They have now congregated actually around the parklands and the water itself in some of the trees there, and affecting people living in that area.
Yep.
So it's about where you move the gas guns to at different times and spending some time making sure we're getting in the right spots. We certainly moved them back and forwards between the back
Yep.
of the football club and into some of the bushland up near the cemetery,
Yep,
and did some really good work when that happens.
yep,
They are starting to move around again and they're
Yep.
finding other spaces. We
Yeah.
need to be responsive, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
yeah. So through the chair, and through the learnings that I had in the forum, we can make good amounts of effort to shift them around with gas guns, and that'll have a level of impact. The birds are very clever, and they will learn patterns of behavior, and eventually after time they know that something's not actually gonna hurt them or do anything to them, and so it might have an immediate scare impact 30 seconds later. And we see it here. You can fire off a gas gun and they'll fly up, circle around and come back down again, fire it off again.
Sit on it.
They're very clever in the sense that they learn that when something's a scare tactic and when they're actually endangered or in a dangerous situation. So look, we'll continue to do the measures that we do in terms of gas guns, and we can shift them from here to there. But ultimately, as time progresses, they learn patterns. And it's been very hot, so they'll probably want to be near the water. They're just being a normal animal in that regard. So,
Really,
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I get that.
Councillor Bland.
What I also get is that people need to sleep. And these birds are nuisance value from that point of view. The other part that's going to happen is we're going to have a loss of significant trees. If we keep going, we know what's happened here. We've
Yep.
seen it. We've seen the riverbank. It's sad, extremely sad. And we haven't been able to achieve anything there. But we do need to be responsive is the word I still want to use.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So just through the chair, I mean, just through the chair, ultimately, unless there's a biological solution,
I know.
and really that sits again with state government, PIRSA, Landscape Board. I'm sure if they were tearing into agricultural crops, we'd have a biological solution already on the table, but they're not. They're an abundant species. Rarely abundant species are managed by landscape boards. Council's main focus is on protection of their own assets. It's our main focus. And that's a big enough job as it is. So I concur with the director's comments. And I also agree with you. Yeah, the key point, Councillor Bland, in terms of having some knowledge of if you're deterring them from one area, where are they going to next? And yes, these birds are an incredible challenge.
I think when you talk about assets, through you, Mr. Mayor, is that our trees, our community and our parks are our assets.
That's what I'm talking about.
So I appreciate that we can do the best we can, but we could also continue to follow this up through local government and other sources, landscape boards, to see where things are at. I haven't heard anything recently. If everyone's got the same problem, surely everyone just hasn't gone to bed on it, not bothering. Somebody's got to be doing something.
Okay. Again, pass to you to put something through out of session. If you could just send an email out
Yeah.
outlining some of what action that's being taken at the moment.
Yeah.
That would be-
Yeah, most certainly can do that. And through the chair, like I'm not trying to fob this off as an issue. I recognise the issue. Within a kilometre of where I live, we've got a swarm of corellas. So I live it too. It doesn't affect me personally. I'm far enough away, but I can see the impact that it has to the people that are right there. I'm just trying to condition that there might not necessarily be something we can do. There might not necessarily be that. And we'll continue to make our best efforts, but there's not going to be a line in the sand moment where we get these things dealt with how we would like.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one thing I think we should be doing though is like Australia Day, or like they cancelled it in the park and had it in the bowls club, but the park was a disgrace with a mess from these birds. So at least we should be cleaning that up every morning. There's leaves. You're going to see the road out in front of my place. The whole road's covered in leaves.
I know what it's like.
Yeah, and so was all the footpath down at the Lions Park. You know, like, at least we should be there with a blower or something cleaning that up, because otherwise someone will get hooked up and fall over.
Yeah, what I'll do, and sorry, through the chair, we can close this out. I'll provide, like I took some notes from that session, which is all around the information we were fed and sort of thing, and I can circulate that, and then we can just, you know, we'll continue to manage them as best we can. We'll consider things like that, although I don't know how practical it is to be out there, because the only way you deal with that is probably to mow and break it all up or rake the reserve or whatever. But if we're spending 3 hours a day doing that, is that,
Not
at
doing
what
it.
point does it become uneconomical and we're sacrificing services elsewhere because we're doing that? You know, it's a big balancing act.
Might be
Okay.
quicker to move the gas gun once a day.
Okay, so I've got a question from councillor Qualman and then councillor Arthur, and then councillor Antry.
Just some more relevant information on the topic, if I may, please.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you. And I take on board what the councillor said and what the director said and what Miles has said about council assets. Back in 2022, being on the Progress Association, we organised for Australia Day events, and one was sort of to have outside. Of course, yeah, it all nearly went pear-shaped, because I had to rush home and get my push mower and mow it, because there was that many leaves from the corellas out here in Willow Prison. And that's been happening every year. So ever since then, we have it inside because of that. And also they're doing what I would call irreparable damage or reversal damage to our trees. Some are on Dipti land, but a lot of it's on council land down at Dixon's Reserve, and they have just like huge big clumps. When you come across the ferry, you can't see the trees for the birds. So it is a problem, and it's not only Beninghi, it's not only at Tailem, no doubt. It's around the other parts of council, and somehow we've got to try and do something about it for wrecks all our assets. Thank you.
Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, just two points I'd like to make. One is this investigation by Perth has been going on for nigh on 2 years now, and no results come out of it because it doesn't affect the city. You know, it's mainly a country problem, and it is. It's got to the stage we've actually got about 400 down at Tinny now. We haven't had them before. They've just arrived and decided they like the oval.
Melbourne as well.
The other thing is I would like the CEO to investigate why we stopped shooting. We had a very successful project going here where Tailem Bend and Beninghi were being shot. All the legal requirements were in place, and then all of a sudden it was stopped. Why? And why can't we start it again?
Thank you, councillor Arthur. To the CEO, can you take that on notice, please?
We'll take that on notice.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Antry.
Just in follow-up what councillor Arthur said just then, I would imagine that part of the issue here is the optics around dead, beautiful white birds lying all over the place, and what the people that aren't affected by this would say. And so there's an optical thing here, I reckon, is half the reason they eat, because whilst they're not living it, and if they were to see these beautiful, like one of the last week was like someone was photographing them. If there was piles of them lying dead all over the Dukes or over the Mallee or over the parks and they weren't being picked up, some group's going to take major issue with that. So I'd say that's part of the issue with, I agree with everything you're saying, but I'd say that'd be part of the issue why they're slow to try and solve this. My second question is, do these birds attack fruit crops like the Adelaide Hill cherries, or like are they known for attacking fruit, or is it only just debarking trees and leaves?
The CEO?
Well, through the chair, the answer is no.
No.
So I'm positive if they were, you know,
Yeah.
a serious threat to the Adelaide Hills cherries or apples, that this would be a totally different situation. They seem to, and I will state that they actually have got into the metro area, if you include Mount Barker, and on Kaparinga, I think, they had a fair bit of issues.
Victor
Of course, they've got Victor Harbour. So when they started becoming a problem in the metro area, all of a sudden you did start getting the LGA probably taking a bit more of a lead. But I also agree the fact that there still is a lack of momentum and a lack of ownership from state government in this space. The local government can only do so much. And again, if we're focusing primarily on our own assets and there's a whole lot of birds out there causing havoc on private assets. And so answer is no, they don't seem to be an issue for crops. And again, yeah, and also like, sorry, the one crop that I am aware was when I was in the Riverland, it was almonds, the nuts. But they're a little bit easier to deal with. So what you'd be able to do is fly a plane over your orchard, and but what that happened then is just moving the flock to Berry or to Renmar.
They had professional shooters, didn't they?
And they
Every
had-
morning,
yeah,
every
yeah.
night.
That's right. So they probably, if they're doing that in almond orchards, they're probably a bit easier to deal with, and especially where there's not a residential area nearby. But I think with our townships, it is quite a challenge. You are correct. There were, you know, we did get complaints about shooting, and also so we would stop shooting in school holidays. You know, no matter what, you'd shoot as early as you could, but you would always have people who were running, you know, jogging in the morning, or you'd have young folk around, and we did get complaints. And then we had a lot of social media that wasn't, you know, that was quite attacking. So people are quite divided on it. So we'll have another look and answer that question about the shooting. And I suppose the other part of that, how effective was that program? Because it seemed to be that the birds were getting quite smart in knowing about shooting and
Shooting program was very successful.
initially,
You had to,
Go on.
you get the scouts, rest don't come.
yeah.
I think I would support councillor Arthur through you, Mr. Mayor, is that the shooting program did work, and it was some of the optics. If you weren't, and in our area, if one fell in the lake, somebody seen that, that was one of the ones that stopped it there. And the other issue is about the timing of the shoot. That was done. But for us, and I understand now, we can't use our officer to do that, a current officer. That was stopped some time ago. I'm not fully aware of the reason.
So I might, I think we've talked Corellas enough for today. I'll ask the CEO to provide that report. When you do that, could you also look into the change in the Act, because these birds were exempt from native protection in the old Act, and I'm not sure where that sits under the new Biodiversity Act.
Well, I can just add one more thing. I remember when I lived in Victoria for a couple of years, they were real bad around Horsham, and they were eating the seed the farmers were planting their barley and wheat crops. They were digging them up. They had to reseed all their paddocks. They poisoned millions and millions of the bloody thing.
Yeah, a few fellas got fined though.
Right, we'll take that on notice.
Not allowed poison.
It may be a decision of the chamber to go back to the shooting, and that's where we need to do it, and that's what the chamber will need to do. Any further questions with that notice? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Through the chair to the Director of Roads and Infrastructure, could he provide update to a proposed upgrade to the car park in Railway Terrace opposite Foodland here at Tarlan Bend, please?
To the Director.
Through the chair, thank you, councillor Coleman. At this stage, works are to commence week of 19th of February
Very good.
and anticipating about a 6 to 8 week
Completion.
duration.
Thank you.
Councillor Blount.
I have a similar sort of follow-up question, that is about the motel on the northern edge of Meningie, still looking very sad and fenced off. Do we have a further update?
CEO.
I don't have a further update. I think I gave an update just prior to Christmas.
I probably was away in that case.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you were.
So through the chair,
Thank you.
the owner contacted me after I emailed him regarding the property, seeking an update. This is prior to Christmas. His original architect had effectively decided that he's not in a position to continue. So he had to engage a new architect. He's engaged a very good firm from Adelaide, who had to obviously then become familiar with the project. Remembering it's only got planning consent, hasn't got full building rules and development consent. So that architect, I introduced myself to that architect and offered any help we could. And also the owner has advised me he'll keep council through me updated on a more regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Councillor Hara.
I just got one more. Number 1 Bowman Street, Meningie, that burnt down. Is there anything we can do to, I know it's privately owned, but is there anything we can do to try and get that moved along and cleaned up? It's a bit of an eyesore.
So through the chair, yes, that is progressing. There is and so that's an involvement with the general inspector and environmental health officer, because I understand there's asbestos involved in that building. So serving a notice, and depending on the response to that notice, that's what's happening currently, because if that notice isn't complied with, then effectively we've got to go to court and get an order that is sufficient for us to undertake the work and have a charge against the property. But unless the Director of Roads and Infrastructure got anything to add on that?
Thank you.
Just one more is when we had the infrastructure meeting at Meningie, when I left, you were going around to have a look at another house I pointed out, which is a bit of a brothel. Is anything going to happen about that, or is that going to be the biggest, messiest place in town?
Through the chair, I've got to recall the discussion. I did speak to the general inspector around it. I think there's some informal discussion at the moment, but there's probably not anything we can enforce at this point in time from an act point of view. So we'll continue to have discussions around that property with that property owner. Did drive past it. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's unsightly.
Terrible. Yeah.
Is it
It's a help.
is it a health issue? No, it's not like the others where we've got broken buildings that are potentially asbestos. So a little bit different, that one.
Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Councillor Hara just reminded me of my little issue I got here with Tarlan Bend, and I was going to raise it, and I think I will now. And that's about the burnt out derelict house out on Limekiln Road. I've done a couple of emails, as members would be aware. It's been like this for 2 years. We've made any progress? Could someone report, please?
I'll go to the
Yep, no, to me.
CEO.
To me.
Yep.
So through the chair, an email went out last week.
Yeah.
To all elected members, advising them of the action we're taking, and included reference to Bowman Street as well. So that email is the current status. Action's being taken.
Thank you. Any further questions without notice?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, to
Councillor
the field force report. All members have received a copy of it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, all
I thought-
members have
yeah.
received a copy of it.
My question is now, what is the proposed action from this $32,000 report?
I'll go to the CEO.
So through the chair, look, so currently, when I'm interim CEO, I don't necessarily think it would be my job to push forward on a major reorganisation of council. So one would think logically that we'll take the quick wins from that report and we're going to bring about some changes that are very logical, and they involve the introduction of team leaders at that township level. But apart from that, and also noting that there has been a thorough consideration of the organisational structure for internal staff as well. So with both field force and the work that's been done to look at better efficiencies with the internal staff, what I would suggest is the appropriate thing to do is to provide that information to the new CEO that you appoint, and that they get the opportunity also with their experience to have a look at the organisation, have a look at the structure, work with, probably likely to be working with the new elected body after November to design and make changes for the organisation moving forward. So yes, whilst that report has been completed, I don't think it's appropriate for me to make, and then the new CEO starts shortly afterwards.
I'll go to Joel before I go back to Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, and through the chair, and thanks to Miles. That's a really good bit of commentary there. The bit of value I'll add is that it's not sitting idle in terms of we're just going to sit and wait. There's a few bits and pieces. So we had a working group meeting on it last week because at that point in time, I guess the leadership under my director hadn't had the chance to digest the key points out of it. Discussion around what that looks like for them. Yes, there is some quick wins around some structure changes. You know, we are still, between now and a new CEO, we can still work about what a annual works plan looks like. We can still work at what are all our tasks and what is the resource need to deliver all of that. That way we can set some service standards. How often are we going to mow that park? How often are we going to do that task? When are we going to do it? So we're still going to do some background work there so that we can, you know, big part of the report was around better documentation of the work we do and how we do it and what it takes us, etc. Some of the things that are not going to be so quick, there's a lot of reference in the report to some of our corporate systems and the fact that we don't have electronic means to manage our work from field staff point of view, the fact that there's no link between our CRM and that sort of platform. Been in a couple of councils, that sort of stuff doesn't solve itself very quickly or very cost effectively. So that's the bits that might need to wait for a new CEO to decide on, well, you know, what are we going to invest here around another IT system to help us manage a workflow perspective for our field staff. So, yep, I think there's some things that we'll be waiting for this new CEO, but there is a lot that we're going to now start to chip away at in the background, and we can.
The question, the reason I asked the question, not a very outstanding document in the way that we operate, but I would have thought that, you know, we would have been elected members after having been able to have a look at that. would have been subject to a workshop with you people to talk out, because what you're talking about there, Joel, is a budget item, isn't it? It could be a rather expensive way of solving the problem. So it would have to come to council anyway. So I'm just asking that, like somewhere along the line, if we get the thing is, it wasn't the CEO's initiated report. It was the Director of Infrastructure and Assets, not the CEO, but the CEO is not here, only the Director of Infrastructure and Assets that actually received or asked for that report to be done. So that's my point. I think we should be a little bit more informed.
But no, Joel.
Oh, yeah, through the chair. And rightly or wrongly, officially director in December. That is the first time that I looked at it and read it. And since then, I've had 2 meetings with various staff to say, well, we can't have this thing sitting high. Make some progression here, and what does that look like? So I'm committed to not seeing another shelved document gathering dust, and we can action some of it. At this point in time, a PowerPoint presentation, previous director, at this point in time, I've had a look at that presentation. There's probably not much more we can, I guess, update from there. And that's just purely because I've only had a month and a half.
Appreciate it.
Stan, I guess, take it on notice, and probably the next thing to do is identify what some immediate wins are and how we can look to implement that.
Yeah, there's nothing critical from a financial budget perspective that I'm aware of, and I've been on the journey of, the previous CEO and previous director and listened to them, and I've been privy to all that information. So there's nothing that I have in my mind that I'll bring to council for a budget item related to the Field Force report. There's a whole lot of things we can put into place that are easy wins, that are really just processes, the way we go about things. And some of the recommendations around IT systems I wouldn't completely agree with. So it's probably where Craig comes into the story as well in terms of the IT expert. And I would think really myself, Craig and Joel will be sitting down with the new CEO, making sure they come up to speed with everything in the organisation and the work that's been done, so that they then can, be the architect that helps design the structure moving forward. But I stress again, there's nothing critical. There's nothing I believe that, costs money that needs to be brought to council at the moment.
Yeah, for the chair. Some of the report talking about, and it did mention quite heavily in IT, and that does factor into the work that we have been doing, which is to gather the information. If they say things in there to investigate, that process and the things from an IT and systems point of view, you go into that investigation phase to start working out what are, just from an operator. You sit there idle from that point of view also, because that will touch every part of the organisation, not just field stuff.
That was only a very small portion of the report.
Yeah. Feeds into Miles mentioned the other stuff. It does together.
Thank you. Any further questions? Being none, we'll move on to motions with notice. There are none. Moving on to 13.2, motions without notice. Councillor Roundtree.
Yes, sorry, I just, after some discussions today, I've just sent it through to Ash and to Kim. So this is what I'm proposing, that council write to the Local Government Association of South Australia requesting it advocate for amendments to the Local Government Act and or associated regulations to allow ordinary council meetings to be conducted online or in a hybrid format on days of declared or forecast extreme weather events. Now, I know we can't do much in this chamber, but I thought if maybe we got the ball rolling at the LGA level, we could start to consider this going forward. The purpose of the change is to ensure the safety of elected members, staff and public, maintain continuity of governance and decision-making, reduce travel risks associated with extreme heat, bushfire dangers, flooding or storms, and provide flexibility for councils in large and remote districts where travel distances and road conditions may present heightened risks. And that this request recognises that councils have demonstrated the capacity to conduct meetings online in exceptional circumstances and seeks to formalise this option for use during extreme weather events while maintaining transparency, public access and appropriate governance. So I have sent that through to the ladies on email if they want to find the words. But I just think we need to start that conversation because today, I think, you know, on a day like today, if there was a fire, most of us prohibited from getting back to our properties. We may want to be there just in case. I feel weird leaving the house today.
Thank you, councillor Roundtree. Councillor Bland.
I'd be quite happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur, did you wish?
No, it's been discussed at that level for some time. So might as well just keep pushing it.
I will note that I was very close to trying to call off today's meeting. However, given that we have to have a meeting once a month and there aren't enough days left in the month to call another meeting, decided not to. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish to speak to this and it's really funny. I don't know why, but I was sort of thinking when I was walking down how lucky I am to walk to council meetings and how the other, all the other members have to travel when we had some extreme heat waves and yes, it's I totally agree. If we couldn't stay home, we should stay home. Less people off the roads, the better.
You're the youngest.
I just wonder, though, when you say extreme, would that go by what the forecast is by the CFS for the day when they say extreme in fire danger? Because we just want to know when the extreme could be extreme cold or whatever. You know, how do you define that?
That's probably something we need to look at. It probably wouldn't be a fireband day because fireband days can
Something, it's a bit of a
probably
guide.
more a catastrophic day.
A catastrophic day.
Declare extreme days.
Yeah, the new categorisation's got catastrophic, which is probably the one that we're looking for, I think.
Well, I
Sorry,
don't even
Peter.
know if today been catastrophic, has it? No, so, but it might be extreme over a certain temperature or
Yeah.
high winds or I don't know, but I'm just, the wording I want is actually emailed to you. So if you want to copy and paste it in so you can see it. But yeah, I think maybe we do need to just decide what that level is.
Yeah, sorry to get pedantic, but I'm just, if I was living out somewhere, I just want, is it extreme today? You know what I mean? How do we define that?
Isn't it? Heat and wind.
It's heat and wind because it might only be 35 degrees, but extremely high winds. So in that case, it would be quite an extreme day.
So
I just imagine though, if I may, Mr Mayor, that of course, if it gets up, there'll be things in place where we'd get an email to confirm that or to advise us
the
that,
interim CEO.
yeah.
through the chair, I brought this up with Adelaide Hills Council. As you know, I'm on their assessment panel. And as a result, they changed their terms of reference for the assessment panel. They will not have a meeting on a catastrophic fire danger day, and they in fact closed their office on such days, my understanding. So I wonder whether, and I suppose it only really, I mean, it mainly affects council meetings because you don't have the option of online. But Adelaide Hills, we might look at Adelaide Hills as probably one of the more progressive councils in respect to these types of dangers, but I wholeheartedly support the intention.
Good.
Excellent.
Councillor O'Hara? Nope. Councillor Roundtree, are you happy with the motion as it is currently on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, the one I've sent through is more elaborate, but I'm happy that covers the intent and the wording of the motion can be developed as we go forward. So I'm happy with that at the moment.
Councillor Bland, you wish to speak?
So happy to second.
Okay. Any further councillors wish to enter debate? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Are there any further motions without notice?
Mr Mayor, I'll test the water, and that is the changing of the time of a council meeting to after lunch. So I'd like to move that we consider changing the time of the council meeting to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my reasoning is that, and today is a good example where we have basically a briefing this afternoon that had we been able to fit it in as an emergency briefing this morning, would have dealt with some of the issue with further discussion or significant discussion, which is probably going to take up time in this meeting now anyway. That is part of my reasoning wanting to do that. I also am in favour of council not having too many discussions prior to the council. All briefings really should be held at least the week before, and that was the original intent of having the meetings 1 week apart, where we have briefings and sessions where we can have more updated discussions. If there is something urgent that comes up, only to do that just prior to the meeting in the morning. This can't happen now. We now have an item in here that we're going to have to discuss a little bit, should be discussed fully. And it has an urgent time on it, which I acknowledge would be difficult for staff to be able to do anyway, but could have been done if we'd have had the reverse. I understand people wanting to get home, but our meetings don't go long, and if we started at 1, we could actually finish at a reasonable hour.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bland. Councillor Bland's moving. Is there a seconder for the motion before we enter debate?
I'll second it for the purpose of debate.
Councillor Bland, do you wish to speak to the
I
motion any
think
further?
I've probably said everything that I think needs to be said. I don't have a strong opinion one way, but I do have an opinion about where items come up that are urgent that could have been done in a better method should we had that opportunity to do it. I don't want to see the time period before a council meeting be used just because it can be. Everything really should come to council at least the week before so people have time to digest it. And I know that we can put timeframes on our council. Our council meetings generally don't go that long because we are now timeframed around the fact that we have briefings in the afternoon, which also is an interesting way of doing it, rather than using the full day or the day on the week before for discussion and briefings.
Councillor Bland, Councillor Roundtree, do you wish to speak?
So I just want to clarify, this is more around a structural procedural kind of change in that if our meeting started at 1, only items relevant to the 1 o'clock meeting, if they were urgent, would be discussed beforehand.
That would be my preference.
Okay.
And any need.
Not new business, just and pertaining to the agenda that we're about to tackle at 1 p.m.
Yes.
Right, and then the week before would be full briefings, as per usual.
Full briefings and a section put aside for discussion with councillors that we now use within the council meeting rather than prior to the council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak?
I'll be voting against it because I think 10 o'clock is, I think it's a good time to have council meeting.
Councillor Coleman?
I'm with Councillor Hara. I prefer 10 o'clock. A bit more switched on when we're going to make all these decisions. That's how I feel. Thank you.
I was voting against it. I believe that 10 o'clock's a good thing. And also the thing that we have that many workshops now, having a few before, it's not going to matter. And if you have a workshop before and then you're going to vote on in the afternoon, what about if you need a lot more further information that's got to be required? So you'll have to defer that, make a decision with not the full information.
Are you going to do that this afternoon?
After the meeting. Yeah, I can see. where you're
Councillor
saying.
Bland, you're close.
Look, I bow to the chamber. I'm happy.
We do have a formal motion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Bland and Roundtree. Those against? Voting against is Councillor Coleman, O'Hara and Arthur. Motion is lost. Any further motions without notice? There being none, we'll move on to the minute action list. Are there any questions from council members regarding the minute action list? Thank you, councillor Quatman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is mainly a comment on 231/24 September, the proposed disposal surplus assets Tailem Bend trains. On social media the other day, I did see the green boxcar on the northern end of the rail carriages over there and for sale. So it's obviously getting out of there. Something's happening. Maybe the director of Community and Corporate give us a bit of an update how disposal's going. Thank you.
Director of Roads and Infrastructure. Oh,
Through the chair, thank you. Our depot and plant coordinator who's facilitated the auctioning of those items, I think even last week, again, continues to be in contact with the purchaser. I think it had gone many months before Christmas and we'd reached out to him again. And then since that period, obviously had a Christmas break. The person has now been we put them in direct contact with a ARTC representative that we hope can expedite any approvals that they need to now get in and remove them. The depot and plant coordinator's almost on weekly phone calls to get updates from that individual, hoping that we can get them removed as soon as possible.
good. Thank you. Any further questions from the minute action list? No?
And it's possibly an update, as I apologise for not being at the December meeting, and that is 367/25, the rates postponement. What were the following actions that we have concluded from the race completion of that project, that rates postponement, and made aware of?
I may take it on notice to provide a more thorough response, but understanding from the previous meeting, council decided not to continue with the drought relief process, so effectively not continuing, but it was tapering off that requests. The rates officers in the process, of course, having all of those rates notices related to those properties appropriately with appropriate amounts on them and appropriate information on them. So that work is not as onerous as it was before. But if I may, I'll get the rates officer and the finance manager to provide a more comprehensive report. I do understand some of that information will be in the finance agenda.
Thank you. Anything further from the minute action list? Okay, if there is none, we'll move into our confidential items. For those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available. We could please pause the live stream.